Hi and welcome to this fortnight's video blog. Thank you for the gift of your time. This is the first video blog in our winter season here in Australia, and I must confess it feels a bit like it today. Even here in sunny Queensland, it's a bit cool. This is the third in a series on the inner well-being of a leader. How do we judge leadership? We often do it on the external things of vision and mission and strategy. But I'm talking in this series on the inner well-being of a leader and how those things are so important. And the thought for this fortnight is leaders decide what defines you. Decide what defines you. I'm not talking about a dictionary definition of a leader or of leadership. I'm talking about what defines you as a leader, how you define yourself or how you allow yourself to be defined in the leadership journey. This is an issue of identity. That how we define ourselves and allow ourselves to be defined. And it affects so many things. Your identity affects the joy you have in leadership. It affects your security. It affects your confidence. It affects the risk profile you have in leadership. It affects how others around you feel about your leadership. It's so many things that it impacts your identity and how you allow yourself to be defined. It's about being at peace with yourself in life and in leadership. It's about having that sense of peace. You don't have to be a clone of someone else, but you can be who you are. And as a person of faith, as I am, you can be who God created you to be and be content with that. It's at being at peace with who you are. We've heard in this COVID season many times the phrase used of what sort of leadership is required as a non-anxious presence, and that's simply code for I feel okay in myself as a leader even when things around me are chaotic. I'm okay with who I am and who I define myself to be and allow myself to be defined as. That's really important. And there are a lot of things that will pull us away from who we are. There are a number of things in life and leadership that will cause you to be pulled away from your ordinary leadership gift that you have, the ordinary posture of leadership that you have, which is unique to you. And I want to talk about some of those today, just three of those today. There's so many, but just three. And the first one of those is fear. You can have your leadership defined by fear. And it could be fear in a whole lot of areas. It's over a whole gamut of fears you can be defined by. Fear of failure, fear of messing things up, fear of letting people down. A whole bunch of fears can define your leadership. And the thing about fear is this, you won't get rid of it. I mean, fear is there. The issue is whether you allow it to be a commentator or a controller. Whether you let it just commentate or give you some information about things and yourself, or whether you're allowed to control yourself. It's when you're allowed to control yourself it becomes unhealthy. But it can be a good commentator. Fear can alert you to some things in yourself that you need to know about yourself, some trends that you find yourself involved in. Fear can alert you to some things in your environment which you need to be aware of as a leader coming into a new season. So fear is fine if it's simply a commentator, but when you're allowed to control you, then it becomes a very unhealthy partner, and it can define you in very unhealthy ways. The second one of those is people. People can define you. People can make you want to become the image of how they want you to be. They can want you to be the version of yourself that they choose you to be. It's a very easy thing that can happen, but it can be inconsistent with your character. But it's what they want. It's what they want you to be. The expectations of others play a large part in your leadership. And there are times personally when I've found myself just feeling I have to fit in with other people's expectations of me. And you do that too often. And one day you wake up and you wonder who you really are. How would I define myself as a leader? Because there are some people who want you to be, the gung-ho visionary as a leader. There are some people who want you to be the stable, wise sage as a leader. There's some people who want you to be the leader who's just affable to everyone and for everyone. And so you sometimes wake up and you think, what should I be? What should I do? You need to be aware that people can actually be the source of causing you to be somebody you're not and to lead in a way that's not your normal, natural self. And that's important. You end up being kind of schizophrenic. One day you're this type of leader, one day another type of leader. The third area I want to talk about is one that seems counterintuitive, and it's the area of success. Success or otherwise can define you as a leader. It can be the thing that does you become defined by success. And let's face it, we all strive for success. We all strive for a bit of significance in life, usually along the way. But if you allow it to be too much, if you allow it to define you, your sense of well-being will be tied up with how successful you are or seem to be. And so in a purple patch of leadership, for example, you have a great sense of well-being because you've led well and we're doing well. But if you have a dark patch of leadership when things are not going so well and your KPIs aren't shaping up the way you'd like them to be, then you can actually get yourself into a bit of a hole and you define yourself as a failure. And so if you allow your KPIs, your sense of success or otherwise, to be the determinant of who you are, then you find yourself on a roller coaster depending on what's happening around about you. I'd imagine there's a lot of people in this whole COVID season who've had to struggle with that whole issue of who I am, given the fact that maybe my KPIs are not what I'd like them to be. So that's important. What defines you is so important, so crucial. And as a person of faith as I am, it's recognizing that you're a unique individual created by God like no one else. And we have to live out that definition for ourselves. And your definition is really crucial. So it's not being defined by fear. It's not being defined by people. And it's not being defined even by success. It's who you are. Leaders decide who and what defines you. That's really important for us as we go forward. So I hope that's helpful. I'd love to hear back from you if there are other issues of leadership, particularly that internal side of our leadership that really is important for you. Love to hear back from you. But feel free to feedback on normal ways, Facebook, LinkedIn, website, and YouTube. And I look forward to catching up with you again in a fortnight's time. In the meantime, stay well and take care.